Alright boys, I've put it off for far too long. Over the last year and a half, I have spent a lot of time beating Bloodborne almost 30 times, so I could say I've done full runs with every single weapon for the express purpose of saying what is the best and what is the worst. So we are going to rank every single trick weapon in Bloodborne. We will have them separated into tiers, but they are also just ranked within the tiers. So I'll say when one tier starts, but they're just going to be going in, I guess, descending order. So, I guess ascending order would be the correct term there. So, number 27. I want to say first, all these weapons are usable. It's just some of these weapons have less going for them than others. Number 27 is the most obvious answer in the world. It is the Kaz Parasite. Now, this thing can be a crowd clearing monster. The arcane explosion on L2 is insane against mobs, but against bosses, it doesn't have really anything going for it. On my run that I dedicated to the Kaz Parasite, I had really great gems in it. I had 99 arcane, and everything besides the arcane explosion was still doing laughable damage. So this weapon is absolutely horrible. It is only good for mobs. Against bosses, this thing is absolutely useless. It has nothing going for it. So that is in its own tier at the bottom. That is the worst weapon in the game. I don't even think it's close. Even the runner-up, I feel like, just is way more usable. So number 26, this starts C tier, is the Beast Claw with no rune. Now we're going to be ranking the Beast Claw twice on this, but the version without the rune just doesn't have anything going for it. Not particularly great damage, not a particularly great moveset, no real good gimmicks to it. It doesn't really build up any beast meter. I have not played Bloodborne in like a month or two because I had to take a break, man. So I'm hoping I remember the terms right. But it doesn't really build up a ton of that without the rune, I don't think. So overall, it is a shell of its normal self without the rune. It's still usable. It's not terrible. You can make it work, but it's not particularly great. I did a full run with the rune and without the rune. Number 25 is going to be the Threaded Cane. It's just lack of damage. You know, I think that the moveset isn't the worst ever. I think it's usable, but overall, I would say that it doesn't have literally anything going for it at all in terms of just actual damage. You know, its range is okay. It's not as slow as the Beast Cutter, but it needs to do way more damage. I get that having such crazy range is very viable, but it's not really worth it when you don't do any damage, man. It's really not. Again, it's usable, it's fine, but it's only really good when NPCs use it from what I can tell. Number 24 is going to be the Ryder Palish. Again, it's just a weapon that doesn't have a lot going for it. Just really low damage. It's a gimmick weapon. It's got a gun attached to it. It's really good for gun-only runs, you know. Put bone marrow ash on a repeating pistol and then parry with the Ryder Palish and then blast them with that. Big boy damage, right? It does a lot. So if you're doing a gun-only run, I mean, Ryder Palish, you can't ask for a better trick weapon. But normally, this weapon is terrible. This weapon is abysmal. It doesn't do any damage. The gun form isn't worth it at all. Just absolutely terrible weapon. But again, it's got more going for it than some other weapons. Number 23 is going to be the Beast Cutter. I only really put this above the cane because it does a lot more damage. Like, when it's untricked, the club form is actually not terrible. It does solid damage. It's serrated, so you got something going for it, but when it's tricked, just forget it, man. Unless you're fighting a group of really slow enemies like crows or something like that, you're going to get like no use out of the tricked version of this. It's absolutely laughable. Number 22 is going to be the Rifle Spear. Not as bad as everyone likes to say it is. Now, untricked, I think it's just miserable. It's like, it's such an enthralling moveset to just thrust and thrust and thrust and thrust. That's not intended to be sus. When it's tricked, I think it's a little bit cooler, you know. It's like it turns into a swinging weapon rather than a thrusting weapon, and anyone who watched my Elden Ring streams knows that I hate thrusting weapons. I hate them. But tricked, when it's tricked, I had a lot of fun with this weapon. The gun is absolutely worthless. It's a blunderbuss type weapon, so it's worthless. It's trash. I don't even think this thing can parry, and if it does, I guarantee you it ain't worth it. Number 21 is going to be the Larious Wheel. This weapon can get some pretty crazy damage, but I'm going to tell you, it ain't worth it, man. it ain't worth it. It's way easier to get this same damage or higher from other weapons with a lot less investment, trust me. This thing can scale up to S with strength and really high with arcane, but I'm telling you, it is just not worth it. This playthrough I did with this was like my 6th Bloodborne playthrough. Absolute misery. Would never do this again. Just the complete opposite of fun. The Larious Wheel is just not fun. It takes way too much work for it to actually be good. And now we're moving on into B tier. So starting B tier is the Beast Claw with the rune. The moveset is a bit better. It's a little bit faster. You build some beast meter so the damage can get pretty up there at the cost of your own defense, of course. Again, the moveset is just overall a bit better. That's really all there is to it. More damage, better moveset. That's about it. Number 19 is going to be the Tonitrus. This weapon I see get crapped on a bit too much. I've seen a lot of people say it's one of the worst in the game. I think the problem is that it's just a little bit boring. You know, when you trick it, it does not get a new moveset at all. You just get a lightning effect, which is decent, I guess. It's not a bad weapon. You can get some solid damage out of it, but the buff is way too short. The durability, like, very few weapons in the game do I have issues with the durability. The Tonitrus is one of those weapons, though. You hit like 3 things with this and it'll say weapon at risk. The Tonitrus durability is abysmal, but it's not a terrible weapon. It's a mid weapon, right? It's a fun weapon. I enjoyed my time with it, but if I'm ever doing a randomizer, I'm never picking the Tonitrus if I've got any option above it. Number 18 is going to be the Omdal Arm. Again, a mid weapon. This can actually be a pretty solid strength weapon. You can get some pretty good damage out of it, but there's just weapons that do the same damage or higher, but with a lot less investment. The Omdal Arm is a fun weapon. I really liked its trick form. I thought it was really, really cool. The untricked form was a little boring, just a lot of slams, but the trick variant was really, really fun, and I liked it a lot. The Squiggle Squaggle on the R2 was really fun. And number 17. Now, this is when things get controversial. Number 17, I have the Bloodletter. This thing is a waste of blood tinge. It is a waste. The Chicag is this weapon, but better. So the Bloodletter is useless. The range is deceptive. You see a big weapon like that, you think, oh man, I can hit from like a football field. No, you hit from like 2 feet in front of you. I feel like I'm swinging the Blades of Mercy. I feel like I can't hit anything with it, man. And it doesn't even do that much damage. Yeah, the L2 was really strong, but you frenzy yourself. It's worthless. I hate this weapon. Listen, I know Jesus Here's Toast loves this weapon, and he's way better with it than I could ever be. But I hate this weapon, man. It just ain't all that good to me. Of course, it's not bad. Like, I think it's a B tier weapon. You know, it's on the higher end of B tier, but it just ain't it, man. Like, there's just, again, this section is pretty much all reserved for weapons that take too much investment to get what other weapons do easier. And speaking of which, number 16 is the Kirk Hammer. I loved the Kirk Hammer, and it hurts me to place it so low, but again, man, well, one, it's too slow, but like, there's just better weapons than this, man. There's weapons with a better moveset that can do more damage. The Kirk Hammer was a ton of fun. I absolutely loved it. It was definitely one of my favorite weapon runs I did overall. Just being able to bonk the Eldritch Horrors over the head was really good. But the Kirk Hammer there's just something about it. You know, you use the Kirk Hammer, you see the big numbers, you think it's pretty cool, but then you go use something else and it's like, oh, wow. Oh, Jesus Christ. You know, the Kirk Hammer's fun. It's cool, but it lacks different damage types. It's all blunt damage, every single bit of it. So it's really good, but it needed a bit more. But I mean, what more can you do with a hammer? We'll get to that later. And now we're going into A tier. I was tempted to drop these down into B tier. Number 15 is the Blades of Mercy. I used to love these things. I don't like them as much now because there's a weapon I have much higher that's basically the same thing but better. Technically, there's 2 weapons that are like that. The Blades of Mercy don't do a lot of damage, and in fact, against beast enemies, they suck. They flat out suck. They are trash. But against humanoid enemies or NPC hunters, these things are ridiculous. You just stun lock them. Stun lock them for days. And if you got like 40 stamina with 2 stamina runes on, bro, you go to town. You can kill them in a single combo. It is insane. The Blades of Mercy against human enemies are really good, but again, against the beast enemies, like against Lawrence, these things are absolutely worthless. And did I mention you can't even fire paper them because they're made out of ciderite or whatever, so they would just disintegrate if you fire papered them? So stupid, man. The Blades of Mercy, you should have been able to fire paper. Number 14, I hate that I have to put these next two so low, but it's because we're getting to the top tier. Number 14 is the Boom Hammer. I loved the Boom Hammer. It was everything I loved about the Kirk Hammer with explosions, so it was just better. The Boom Hammer was so much fun. I loved that you could trick it once and get one really strong attack. I had a lot of fun using this thing, but there's just weapons that do that but better. I mean, that's really all there is to it. It's a bit on the slow side. It doesn't do a ton of damage unless you're using the tricked attacks, and again, you can only do that once. But it is a fun weapon. It is a really good weapon. That's why it's in A tier. Number 13 is the Stak Driver. Again, I loved the Stak Driver. It was so fun. The charged R2s of this thing, if you really know the boss movesets, you can get these off pretty frequently and just destroy them. I have a short up on my channel of me just melting like the last 3/4 of Ebrietas' health bar in like 2 seconds with this thing. The Stak Driver is absolutely insane if you can get those charged R2s off. It's definitely, in that case, it looks like one of the best weapons in the game. But it's just, for most players that haven't played the game 100 times like I have, it's going to be really hard to use the Stak Driver. It really is. So as much as I love it, this is definitely a skill check weapon. You got to be really, really good at the game to use the Stak Driver effectively. But when you get there, oh, it feels so much fun. Number 12 is going to be Simon's Bowblade. This one I was contemplating because this is a great PvP weapon, but I don't play PvP. But it's not terrible for PvE. It scales with S with skill, which means, you know, you have like 50 skill. This weapon does good damage, and any viscerals do really good damage because I think viscerals scale mostly with skill and with strength, but mostly with skill. For the blood tinge arrows, they're okay. I believe unlike arrows, they don't have any damage drop off. I mean, unlike bullets, they don't have any damage drop off at long range, so it's pretty good for that. Against bigger bosses that can't really like duck and dodge your arrows, it's really good. But against more nimble enemies, you're gonna have a really hard time. But its transformation attacks are pretty decent, I've found. Number 11. I love this weapon, but I've got to agree with people that it ain't all that. The Burial Blade. The Burial Blade's really fun. It's so cool. You know, using a scythe, it's the coolest thing ever, but it just... Why can't you fire paper this weapon? Why can't you bolt paper this weapon? Why? Why can't you do it, man? I feel like the weapon in general could use a bit more damage. I really like its range. The charged R2, you can hit from a football field away. You hit from so far with the charged R2, but it just needed more damage. It needed more oomph to it. And the untricked version, I don't like at all. I do not care for the untricked version of this weapon. Now we're getting into S tier. So we have an S tier and then we have a God tier. So the bottom of S tier, number 10, the Hunter Axe. The Hunter Axe was the first weapon I ever picked up in this game, and I was astounded that this is the first weapon. Because then I thought, oh, this is the first. That means that the later weapons are going to be so much better. Nah, man, this is one of the best. The rally you get off this thing is insane. Which you get a lot of rally with some weapons like the Moonlight Sword or the Burial Blade, but you get a lot off the Hunter Axe, and it's really, really good. Untricked, it's okay. It's a little on the sluggish side, but when it's tricked, I mean, just, you know, spin to win. That's all you got to do. The R2 on this thing is insane. Spin to win. The L2s are also pretty good. This thing overall just has a nasty moveset, man. Really, really nasty. It's just there's weapons on this above it that just I think are a bit better. Speaking of which, number 9 is my favorite weapon in the game, the Beast Hunter Safe. This thing is so much fun when you learn it, man. This is one of the weapons I said that's basically the Blades of Mercy, but better. Untricked, it is a one-handed weapon that is really good for crowds, does decent damage. The transformation attacks are probably the best transformation attacks in the game. They're just so good, you know. You want to transform into the trick form, you just lunge forward with it. You need to get back into the scimitar form, you step back with it on the trick attack. It's so good. The transformation attacks on this are so much fun. It makes your movement really, really cool. Fights against like NPC hunters feel so sick with this thing. I love the Beast Hunter Safe, man. I just wish it was serrated. That's my big complaint. Like if this thing was serrated, I'd love it even more. But sadly, it's not. Number 8 is the Church Pick. This is basically just the Hunter Axe, but better. Now, a lot of people don't really understand this thing's damage type. So people say it does Righteous and Serrated. It does Righteous, I think, but it does not do Serrated. it does Beast Hunter damage, which means against beast enemies, it does 20% more thrust damage, which is why that one hit of the untricked combo does so much damage. This is the thrust damage king, and it only has like 2 thrust attacks. So that Beast Hunter buff is really, really good, but it's not what people say it is, okay? People will say, Dog is the best weapon in the game. It's got Righteous and Serrated. Righteous can be discounted. What is it, like 4 enemies in the game that take Righteous damage? Worthless. Absolutely worthless damage modifier. But it's really, really good. I like the church pick a lot. It's just the big brother to the Hunter Axe is really all it is. Number 7. Now, this one is going to be a little bit controversial. Number 7 is the Ludwig's Holy Blade. I don't really have anything special to say here. It's simple. Press button, do damage. That's the Ludwig's Holy Blade. It's a great weapon. It does some really, really good damage. Trust me, it does. But there's just a version of this weapon up here that's just better. It's a really great weapon. Does a lot of damage. Has a pretty decent moveset. You can block with this and the Kirk Hammer. I didn't mention that. You can block with these. It's a hidden thing in the moveset. I don't remember exactly how to do it, but you can. It's a good weapon, you know. It's just the absolute dick-throbbing power, as Rusty put it, with this weapon is insane, but it's just weapons I think are better. I'm sorry. Number 6 is going to be the Ruyu. This is also just the Blades of Mercy, but better. The Ruyu is really, really good. It's got different combo finishers depending on, L2 is your combo finisher. And if you do it normally, you do a spin. If you do it at the end of your R1 combo, you do a 2-handed slash over the head. And if you do it at the end of the pokes on R2, you do a 2-handed poke. The Ruyu is very, very good. It's got a lot of variety in its moveset, tricked and untricked. It does a lot of damage in both forms for a skill weapon. It's very, very fun. The damage can kind of taper off on further New Game Plus cycles, but I've only gone up to like New Game Plus 4, so I haven't really seen that. But the Ruyu, in my experience, has just been very, very reliable. This weapon is extremely consistent. I feel like I'm always getting really great performance out of this, whereas other weapons, I feel like I'm just getting unlucky with them, but the Ruyu I've always just had a great time with. Number 5 is the Chicag. This gets some of the highest damage in the game, in case you didn't know. Chicag's blood damage is redonkulous. The R2s, and then like, you can press L1 to sheath it, and then hold it, and then press R1 when you get close to do like a really fast draw slash. Does way too much damage. Like, the starting combo of that does insane damage for such a fast attack. The Chicag is just, it's broken. Simply put, like, if you gem it correctly, you use the proper amount of blood damage, it's hilariously broken. It's so good. It does so much damage so fast. It does drain your HP, but like, it's negligible, right? Like, compared to the amount of damage you're doing, the HP regen is non-existent, bro. Unless you're spamming the R2, in which case, yeah, you're gonna kill yourself very quickly with this thing. Number 4 is the Whirligig Saw. I know it's heretical to not have this in the top 3. I'm sorry. I don't like it as much as I like others. It is a one-trick pony. It gets boring. I'm sorry, it does. It's a great weapon. It is a beast-slaying monster and NPCs, because if you use the L2 attack, they don't know how to handle it. The NPCs don't get it. So you just stick them right there and just chainsaw them forever. The Whirligig Saw is amazing, and you could honestly argue it above the next weapon, but I just think it's better. Number 3 is the Moonlight Greatsword. Yeah, this is the Ludwig's Holy Blade, but it does arcane damage. Very, very few things in this game are really resistant to arcane. In fact, I think it's only like 3 or 4 enemies. So this thing is just bonkers. I mean, just think of the Ludwig's Holy Blade, but add arcane damage and projectiles. The L2 attack on this thing is really, really good. The projectiles on R2 are really good. The damage overall is insane. The untricked version is a little underwhelming, but I mean, you should never be using an untricked anyways, because when it's tricked, oh my god, you press L2 and people get mowed. It is insane, man. It's like you press that button and you win. So that is the end of the S tier. Now we move to the God tier, and I'm sorry I had to put these weapons at the top. Number 2 is the Saw Cleaver. The Saw Cleaver is reliable to many a hunter. Great moveset, great rally, great damage. Here's the problem. You trick this weapon, and you see that it does the same damage, but a bit slower. And that's because, well, and it doesn't have its serration to it. And its moveset is also extremely lame. It does have a double heavy, but it's just not enough. The Saw Cleaver is good. but its trick version really holds it back. And that's where our number 1 spot takes the case. The best weapon in Bloodborne, I think, is without a doubt the Saw Spear. It is amazing. It is like, I used to be a Saw Spear denier, and then I used it for a run, and like my third eye opened and I realized what power looked like. So much damage, the speed, the rally, the moveset. It's like, it's the same base moveset as the Cleaver with the same trick attacks, but when it's tricked, entirely different, keeps its serration, way better range, not just swinging up and down constantly, double heavy, thrust attack, the works. This thing has it all, man. It's got it all, and it is insane. The Saw Spear, I think, is just like, it's not even close. I don't think. I should put this in a separate tier that is specifically called the Saw Spear, because it just ain't close, man. It is the same weapon as, like, I don't get this for Saw Cleaver fans. It is the same weapon as the Saw Cleaver, but it's better. It's the same thing. It's better. And did I mention that it can also scale really well with Arcane? Because it can. It's just so bonkers, man. I cannot believe the Saw Spear is as good as it is. But yeah, that is my ranking of the Bloodborne trick weapons. I know it was a lot of samey, but I mean, what do you want me to say? Bloodborne isn't that complicated of a game compared to like other Souls games. Bloodborne is very, very streamlined, you know. Just as Maxor said, you only have to really worry about 2 things in Bloodborne: dodging and hitting. That's about it. But this game, like, you know, this game has the best weapons in the Souls series. I love these weapons. They're all really great. Don't worry about it. Like, if you see one and you think, oh, I really want to use that, but, you know, these people on the internet said that it's not that good, don't worry about it. They're all runnable. However, I would not recommend trying your hardest to get the cause Parasite and make it work for a first playthrough. Because one, it's impossible to make it work for a first playthrough unless you have someone carry you through the whole DLC at a really low level. But yeah, like, I would not recommend some weapons, but if you see something here that's lower on the tier list, don't worry about it. They're all totally runnable, just some are better than others. But yeah, that's about it. Yeah, man, I don't know if I'll do something like this for another Souls game, but yeah, I guess that's about it. I don't do videos too often, so outros are difficult. Yeah, that's about it. I'll leave my Discord in the comments section below if you want to get in on that. Let me know your ranking in the comments, and if you think I'm hilariously incorrect on everything I've said, I'm sure someone will say that. And yeah, I guess that'll do it.